Hi, I am Dr. Sai Prasad Reddy. Welcome to Software Testing Tutorial. Now we are going to discuss about the examples of the combinations of severity levels and priority levels. Now, see, once the software test engineer finds the defect, immediately he has to report the defects to the development team by using a particular template or format. Now, while reporting the defect by the concerned software test engineer, the software test engineer has to assign the severity level to that particular defect. The severity level for each and every defect should be assigned by the concerned software test engineer. And coming to priority, once the defect is reported to the development team, the concerned developer will assign the priority level for that defect. I repeat, once the defect is reported by the software test engineer, the concerned software developer will assign the priority level for the defect. So, here, what do you mean with the severity and what do you mean with the priority? Now, the severity is nothing but the impact of that particular failure due to that defect. Because if some defects are present in application, those defects will cause a failure in the operation. So severity indicates that seriousness of a failure. And the priority. Priority indicates how urgently this defect has to be fixed by the developer. The priority level will always indicate the urgency to fix a defect. What it means? For example, if the priority is a high priority for that particular defect, it means that that defect has to be fixed immediately. If the priority is a high priority for any defect, that the defect has to be fixed by the developer within a couple of hours. Like this. The priority level will always indicate the urgency to resolve that defect, urgency to fix that defect. Now, that fixing or resolving the defect will be always based on the priority level. That means, if for any particular defect, the priority is a high priority, then it has to be fixed immediately. For any defect, if the priority level is a low priority, then it can be fixed after some time, maybe 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. That is why the fixing of the defect or resolving the defect by the concerned software developer will be based on the priority level only, not on the severity level. Clear? Now, see here. The combinations of severity and priority levels. See, high priority with a high severity, high priority with low severity, low priority with a high severity, low priority with low severity. These are the possible combinations, right? So now we will discuss every example for each and every combination, right? Now see here, high priority and high severity. See, for example, while testing the application by the testing team, the concerned software test engineer has found that the checkboxes are not displayed. according to the client requirement, there should be a checkboxes. Checkboxes should be present. So generally, for what purpose checkboxes will be used? These checkboxes will be used for selecting or unselecting the fields. So if you select that particular checkbox, it will get selected. If once again, if you click on the same checkbox, it will get unselected. Right? So as per the client requirement, here the checkboxes should be displayed, but the concerned software test engineer has found that there are no checkboxes in the application. Now, if the checkboxes itself are not displayed in the application, how the software test engineer can do this testing? He cannot do. He cannot go forward. He cannot do the testing, further testing. Right? He has to stop the testing there itself. If and only if the checkboxes are present, then only he can test whether it is getting selected or unselected. If at all the checkboxes itself are not present, then the further testing is not possible for the software test engineer. He has to stop testing there. It is nothing but a showstopper. So for this reason, the concerned software test engineer has to assign high severity for this defect. Right? But this defect immediately has to be fixed by the concerned software developer. Yes or no? So that's why for this defect, the priority will be also high. This is one example which you can use in interview. And the second one, high priority and low severity. See, generally different people will take the different examples, generic examples. Now I am taking this as a typical example. I have taken this example from the financial application. Say for example, in financial application, there is a payment module. Like financial application, whatever it may be, tax paying or electricity bill paying or some other like say insurance policy paying or something. In that particular application, there is a payment module. Let us assume that there is a payment module. Now, after calculation of all this, after completion of all these calculations, the user should pay the total amount which is displayed in the system. Now, according to the client requirement, the total or the final amount to be paid should be rounded off to 2 digits after the decimal. This is the client requirement. 2 digits after the decimal. Right? Now, while performing the testing by the software test engineering team, the concerned software test engineer has found that the final amount which has to be paid by the users, end users, is not getting round off. That is a defect. According to the client requirement, it should get round off and it should display the final amount. But it is not getting displayed. Say for example, after calculations, the final amount is $45.248. After calculations, the final amount which has to be paid by the end users is $45.248. Now, this $45.248 should get round off and should be displayed 2 digits after decimal. Right? Now, after round off, how much it has to display? $45.25. Right? So, because this 8 is greater than 5, so it should add 1 here, $45.25. Instead of displaying $45.25, it is displaying as $45.24. That means this amount is not getting round off. The final amount is not getting round off. Just it is truncating to these 2 digits after decimal. That's all. It is not getting round off. This is a defect. But here there is a 2 criteria. One is, in the perspective of testing, the software test engineer has found the defect finally, but his testing activities are not stopped. That means the severity level for this defect is very low. Even though the defect is present here, he will be able to do testing. Right? Here, this defect is not a showstopper. It is not stopping the further testing. This is in the perspective of testing. So for that purpose, for this defect, the concerned software test engineer has assigned low severity. But in the perspective of the client, it is a high priority, because instead of paying $45.25, the user, it is displaying as a $45.24. The end users are paying only $45.24. How much that concern, how much the client is losing? In this case, $0.01 he is losing his revenue. So in the perspective of the client, it is very high priority defect, because here the client is losing the revenue, right? So, but in the perspective of testing, it is a low severity, because the defect, what is the defect here? Getting round off. So there is a defect. It is not a showstopper. So the software test engineer, concerned software test engineer, is able to do further testing. It is not stopping. This defect is not stopping. But in the perspective of a client, the client is losing the revenue. Immediately within hours, this defect has to be fixed. That is why for this defect, he has assigned high priority. Like this, you have to explain in the interview. You have to take the typical examples, not generic or general examples, which all the people will be using in regular daily interviews. You have to take the typical example, right? Next, low priority and high severity. This is one combination. See, for example, there is one application. For this application, actually, we are having a login module, login functionality. For testing purpose, the concerned team has registered 1 lakh users, that is 100,000 users. That 1 lakh users have registered and they have created the users. After registering, now the concerned software testing team is testing this login functionality. While testing this login functionality, out of 1 lakh registered users, please keep in mind, this particular application is under testing only, right? Yeah. Out of this 1 lakh registered users, 99,999 registered users are able to log in successfully into that particular application. That means, out of 1 lakh users, only 1 user is not able to log in successfully because there is a defect for 1 registered user. Rest of 99,999 users are able to log in successfully and they can do these operations. Now here, in the perspective of testing, first we will discuss in the perspective of testing. So take this 1 user who is not able to log in successfully. Now, the concerned software test engineer has entered the user ID and password, valid user ID and valid password, and he clicked on the login button. But there is an unsuccessful login. If that unsuccessful login happens, then he cannot move forward for testing the entire application. That testing has halted there itself. That further testing is not possible. There is no workaround. no-go condition, showstopper, if and only if this login functionality works perfectly, then only he can successfully log into this application and the rest of the testing can be happened on the application. But here, the login functionality itself is not working. There is a defect. If the login functionality is not working, he cannot log into the application. If he cannot log into the application, he cannot test the entire application. That is called a showstopper. Right? In the perspective of software test engineer, if this is a showstopper, then immediately the concerned software test engineer has to assign high severity level for the defect. Now, he has reported the defect. Excuse me. He has reported the defect to the developers. Now, the concerned software developer has assigned to this defect as a low priority. What is his thinking? Because you are going to test 1 lakh registered users. Out of 1 lakh registered users, for only one registered user, this login functionality has got the defect. For only one registered user, that login functionality is not working and that user is not able to log into this application. Rest of 99,999 users are able to log into this application. Okay. Now, I am going to assign the low priority for the defect. I will fix that defect after some time, not immediately, not urgently, because you can do the operations, you can perform the testing by using 99,999 registered users, except one registered user. That's why he has assigned the low priority for this defect. In the perspective of testing, yes, it is high severity because it is a showstopper for that particular user. Clear? Like this, you have to explain the examples for the combination of severity levels and the priority levels of the defect in a different way, not in a general way. The next is low priority and low severity. Now see here. All cosmetic defects. These cosmetic defects are also called as minor defects. What are the minor defects? For example, the text is not aligned properly. The fields are not aligned properly. And the color combinations are not perfect. And there is a case sensitive defect. Or for example, if the logo is not positioned according to the client requirement. Like this, these are all the cosmetic defects. For example, say, if there is a spelling mistake in the text, it is not going to stop your testing. That's why low severity. If the text has to be aligned properly, it may be left aligned or right aligned. It is not aligned properly. Even though that text is not aligned properly, it is not stopping the testing. Right? For example, logo. If the logo, according to the client requirement, the logo has to be positioned in the center of the home page, on the top center of the home page. Right? Instead of that logo is positioned on the top right corner of the page. Of course, the logo is displaying, but it has to be displayed at the top center of the page. Instead of that, it is displaying on the top right corner. This is a defect, undoubtedly, this is a defect. But this defect is not stopping the testing. This defect is not stopping the business for the client. It has to be rectified by taking some time, maybe 1 day or 2 days, not urgent or not very urgent, like this, right? So, under case sensitives, for example, in some area, that the text should be displayed in the uppercase. Instead of displaying in the uppercase, it is displaying in the lowercase. Or in some area, the text has to be displayed in the lowercase. Instead of displaying in the lowercase, it is displaying in the uppercase, like this. So these are all the cosmetic defects are the minor defects. These defects are not stopping the testing activity, right? But you have to remember that either it may be a cosmetic defects or it may be any minor defects. these defects should not present in the home page or the main page. That is important. For example, spelling mistake. I am taking one example, spelling mistake. So in this home page or in the main page, according to the client requirement, there should be a text called welcome or welcome all. This should be displayed as soon as this user enters into this home page of this particular application. In that home page, so that welcome to all should be displayed. Here there is a spelling mistake in the home page itself. Instead of welcome, welcome, so it is in some different way. Say for example, wellcama. To all, instead of displaying all spelling, it is displaying oll, something like this. So these type of spelling mistakes should not be displayed in the home page or main page, because this mistakes presents in the home page or the main page, the client reputation in the market will get damaged. The client reputation, the client will get bad name. That's why these minor defects or the spelling mistakes or the field alignments and all combinations or case necessities, whichever it may be, all cosmetic defects are the minor defects. To the maximum possible extent, it should not be displayed in the home page or main page. If it is displaying in the home page or main page, then what are the severity levels and priority levels? For example, spelling mistake in the home page is displaying. Obviously, the severity level will be very low, but the priority will be very high, because immediately it has to be rectified. So like this, in interview, the interview panel members may ask you the examples for these combinations of the severity levels and the priority levels for the defects. Clear? Yeah. And please subscribe my channel, like my videos, and share my video sessions to all the students and all the students community and all the students groups who are searching for the job in the IT industry. Right? Thank you very much.